Hello everyone. Today is July 16th, 2018, and it's 90 degrees here in Seattle, and so it's a little warm for us Seattleites. But even though it's the 16th, I'm going to talk about the eclipse, the partial eclipse that happened on July 12th and 13th. We were going to do this earlier, but life got in the way, so we're not getting it done till today, but that's okay. And so I'd like to start out with, as you can tell, you're looking at my world map, which I made into an astrology chart. And when I started it, like when Mount St. Helens erupted, which is in 1980, I first got the idea that if I looked to see where the planets were on the map, I could figure out what was going on in the world. And I started it with the international date line, which is right here, and that's Eris. That's the first sign of the zodiac. So from here, for 30 degrees, is Eris. And then the next one is Taurus. Oh, wait a minute. Excuse me. Okay, here's Eris, and then here's Taurus, and then here's Gemini, and Cancer, and Leo. And it goes all the way across the board like that. And there's like 360 degrees in a chart, and there's 360 degrees on the map. So it turned out just perfect. And so when I looked up at the time that Mount St. Helens erupted, which was May 17th of 1980, the sun was right here, right over Mount St. Helens, and Uranus was over here in Scorpio, in the exact opposition to it. And Scorpio rules volcanic eruptions and stuff like that. And so then I think, well, this really works. You know, I'm going to keep doing it. And so I did. And I was amazed at how the events that happened in the world corresponded with where the planets were on my map. And I just found it just totally fascinating. It kept me interested for a long time. Yeah. But so to start with, the eclipse that happened July 12th, our time, July 13th, the rest of the world, which was like 3 days ago, if you look at that, I put these planets are, and these were, the planets were on exactly at the time of the eclipse. And so the sun and moon were right over here, over the east coast, and it was opposing Pluto. Oh, another thing I need to tell you is that, like, if this is Cancer right here, down here is Capricorn, because the two signs always work together, because they're polar opposites. And I'd find sometimes it was kind of hard to tell when there were a lot of planets here where the event would be. Would it be like here, or would it be over in here, where it happens? And usually there's two events happening at the same time, just like in Gemini. This is the Gemini part right here, and we have an asteroid here called Vesta, which is a great fire dwarf planet. And so there's been all kinds of fires in this area. And then so I looked at the other side of the world, over here in Pakistan, which is under the Sagittarius thing, and they've had riots there. Like 100 people were killed in the riots. And so it's a manifestation of how things work in the two different areas at the same time. And with this going on in Cancer, there should be, like, I didn't really check to see what's going on in the East Coast. Did you check, Dave, this recently? But it's mainly, it's a government thing, because Pluto's in Capricorn and it rules the government. And so with the sun and moon directly opposing Pluto, and the opposite point over here is in Capricorn. And so with that being the government, you know, and the sun opposing it, like the sun is light and Pluto is dark. And so there's been some major events going on here since this eclipse. And like today, Trump and Putin are meeting over here in Moscow, which is ruled by Uranus. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting. And then they're meeting up here, and they met up here in Helsinki, which is in the same area but up farther. And then also where Jupiter is right here, there's been a lot of things going on in the Middle East that we haven't heard much about. There's been like fighting in Israel and more fighting and stuff in Syria. But there has been one thing that totally fascinated me. It shows the difference between the light and the dark. and that is that 800 Jewish, Muslim, people in, what was it, the other one, the Muslims and Islam, or no, let's see. Anyways, there were 3 different races that came together, 800 people, and they all sang together in this huge song. And I could put that link on the video, because it was just mind-blowing, you know? I mean, here are these people that have, Palestinians, have been, fighting for so many years, and the younger people all got together, which is a new generation, and so they were putting out the positive energy of the love vibration coming out of their music. And so, but back to here. See, like where Saturn is right here, and there's something that works with, like, Pluto's here and Saturn's here. Pluto's on 20 degrees, Saturn's on 4 degrees, and so that makes a difference of 16 degrees, and you take the midpoint, it's right over Washington, D.C. here, so it brings in our government. And so a major event has just happened. I mean, our president made a trip all over here to Europe, and then the climax of it was today with him meeting with Putin. And so that's what I mean when I say that where the planets are, it brings in events that happen on the world scene. And then, because this is Cancer, and the opposite is Capricorn, Cancer rules the home, the family, women, and Capricorn rules the government and the male part of it. And look at what's been going on with the woman part, as the sun has been going through Cancer, because it's been going through Cancer, like for quite a while here now, like about a month or so. Not quite, but almost a month. And that brought in the refugee challenge down in the border with all the children, family and children. And then also, okay, so along with all the women and children stuff down in where the immigrants were, there was also, there was in England, there was a huge march from mainly women in England at the same time that Trump was over that area. And so I find that very, very interesting. And then I wanted to show you another place, because when the Hawaiian volcano went off in May, this is where, the planets were over this area. And this is like Eris. Now, Eris is the real warrior goddess planet. She's a dwarf planet that was discovered it was announced in January of 2005. And right before that, in December of 26, the tsunami in Southeast Asia happened. and that was like a manifestation of Eris coming in, as a goddess coming in and saying, okay, it's my time now, I'm going to do my thing. And so when people are talking about Planet X coming in, actually Eris, and some people, like this one man, made a whole book on Eris and coming in, and she's a red dwarf planet. And there were several others. There's been several other dwarf planets that have been discovered since 2005. I think that there's been about 6 or 7 of them. But she was the first one to show up. And then the rest were discovered between 2005 and about 2012, something like that. And so, anyway, she is the goddess of chaos. And so there's been total, as far as chaos goes, as far as earth changes go, I mean, she came in like with the tsunami. That was huge in Southeast Asia. And then all of the other events have been mainly triggered by her. And so it's really interesting because, like, when President Trump came in, his Saturn is on 23 degrees Capricorn. Cancer. And Eris is on 23 degrees Aries. And Eris moves really slow, and so it's been stationary since he came to be in the public light. And definitely, I think everyone would agree that there's been chaos on the earth since he became president. And so this was the trigger of it here, right here in Eris. Well, also, the Hawaiian volcano is right here. And that's a major, because that part of the map, I had to put a star here a long time ago, because that's 19.5 degrees, which the area connects with all of the other planets in our solar system. And so by tetrahedron geometry, and that's been proven by the scientists. And so then when this volcano erupted, which it's still doing, it's just very violent, it opened up the area there to a higher dimension. And that's why we've been able to pick up the higher frequency, and that's why, because the frequency is changing so fast, and it will be changing. Like this month, there are several things that are happening, and I wrote them down here so I wouldn't forget them. And the first one, like this eclipse right here on July 12th and 13th, depending on where you live, is the first one in the series of 3 eclipses. And there's usually not 3 eclipses in a row. It happens every now and then, so it's not that unusual. But there's so many things that happen in July. Like this is the first event, and then on July 19th, which isn't very far away, all of these planets will be on one side of the sun. I mean, that's extremely unusual. I mean, I haven't even heard of that before. I'm sure that it's happened, but I hadn't heard of it until recently when the astronomer said, well, they're all going to be on one side of the sun on July 19th. I thought, wow, that's major. And then on July 26th, we move into a new Mayan New Year, and that's always important in the calendar of things, because the Mayan calendar is a perpetual one. It keeps working all the time. And with that, so every July 26th, and this is what the ancients, the Egyptians went by, because their New Year's was at that time. And their New Year, they always looked at their New Year when the star Sirius rose over Egypt. And so it's basically, that was based on the Mayan calendar, which has been perpetual since way before then. So that's another major event. And then on July 27th, which is kind of the big time, because that's when we have a total lunar eclipse. And that will be, let's see, 1:20 p.m. Seattle. Oh, and this is also at the same time that the planet Pluto, dwarf planet Pluto, crosses the ecliptic. Now that's a major event. Now Pluto is the planet of transformation. It's been really dominant for quite a while now, since it went into Capricorn, which was, I don't know, 2011 I think it was. And it will continue on until 2023, I think, is when it stays in Capricorn. But the fact that it crosses the ecliptic, that means that it goes into a different frequency. Because like in December 21st, 2012, the whole solar system crossed the ecliptic. Now, when that happened, people say that, that nothing really happened at that time, but they're not right. It did. We crossed the ecliptic and we went into a different frequency that was much higher. And you could tell it like right away when we went into 2013. Things got really like chaotic, and then 14 got more chaotic, and it's because we were in this higher frequency and we weren't adjusted to it. And that's just like when the love vibration comes out, that's on a frequency, and then people that can't deal with that energy, they go a little crazy. And so that has been happening since that happened, and will probably continue to for a while. But the fact that Pluto crosses the ecliptic, now what is this going to do? I don't know exactly what it's going to cause. It could cause, a higher form of transformation. Maybe the war between the light and dark that's been going on for so long, maybe it means that the light has won, the sun and that, against Pluto. I know that this particular eclipse on July 12th and 13th is very important, with the sun opposing Pluto, like it was. And so I guess time will just tell how that works out. And then at the same time, Mars will be at the closest point to the Earth on July 27th. And that's, that brings in the Mars energy period dominant. So it's been moving in, for a while. It's just that is when it's at the exact closest point. And so the Mars energy has been dominant. And of course, Mars is an energy planet. It rules like violence and wars, but it's just plain energy too. It depends on how you vibrate to it. It could be either for the positive or the negative. And one thing is, like, Mars is in Aquarius, and so we were really lucky that we got through the North Korean thing. without actually a war happening. And so they had like it was in the news, you know, because we had the meeting between Trump and the president of North Korea during this time period. But Mars will just be there until August 27th. And then Mars will move into Pisces, which is entirely different from the Aquarius, the air, rebellious sign, into Pisces, which is water, ocean. And isn't it interesting that Pisces rules this whole area here, which is part of the ocean? But then we go over here and have fire here, so fire is still in the part that's the ocean there. But the planets are like different. And then with Jupiter in Scorpio, this is interesting too, because this activates the whole Middle East area. And it's been there for about 9 months right now. And November 16th it moves into Sagittarius, which is a normal planet, because Jupiter rules Sagittarius and it's a fire sign. But Scorpio, I mean, during this whole 9 months, it's manifested the Scorpio energy, which is very secretive. It's things that have been hidden from the past, and all of that has come out into the open, so everyone can be aware of what's been going on behind the scenes and how much we've been under control for such a long time, and that's finally coming out in the open. And also Scorpio rules the sexual energy, and that's as soon as the day Jupiter went in there, that was when the Weinstein event came into the news. And then it was like, and then Stormy Daniels and all of the others that came out with Jupiter being in Scorpio. And let's see, what was another thing that's happening this month? Okay, well, I guess that was it. Well, that's enough. And so I haven't looked up the lunar eclipse, which would be, I'm sure, more interesting than this. And an eclipse, it's not just a one-day event. Like this eclipse that happened, I'm talking about it because it's still in effect right now. It'll be in effect, definitely be in effect till full moon, and then the lunar eclipse will probably take over. But eclipse, like the one that happened last year, when it went all the way across the United States, that is in effect for a long time, because that was a solar total eclipse, and they don't happen very often. And there hadn't been one across the United States in years and years, where it was a total one. Oh, and this one on July 12th and 13th was down here in Tasmania, South Australia. That's where the darkness of it was. And wherever the darkness is, there's always events, physical events that happen, but I haven't heard anything because we live in the United States, and that's way down south, and so we don't always hear about things that happen down there. So I'm sure that there are events that come to pass because of that. And so a solar eclipse can be in effect for a long time. And so we're still under this one. And being that as soon as the sun goes out of Cancer, it goes into Leo. The eclipse was in Leo on 29 degrees Leo. And that was on top of Donald Trump's ascendant. And so there should be a lot more stuff coming out into the open, or in the world scene, along with him, because he was just hit directly by that eclipse. And so as the sun goes into Leo, then we'll hear more about that solar eclipse, of things that'll happen. And I'll have to look ahead. Sorry about that. I don't know if you heard the phone ringing or not, but we were interrupted by a phone call, and so I have to start over from where I was. And every time the phone rings, I get distracted and then forget about what I was saying. And so I was talking about the eclipse that was over the whole United States, and how because Donald Trump's ascendant is 29 Leos, that was the degree that the eclipse was on. And I'm sure that we'll be hearing more things from this past eclipse last year as the sun goes into Leo, which it will do shortly in just a few days. And, well, let's see. What else? I think that it's really hot here, especially in my office where we're recording it. So I think that this might be enough for today. And we can continue with this later. Or is there, Dave, I didn't ask you about any questions or anything.
No, this sounds perfectly fine to me.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And so you think that, well, did you want to say something about the community and what we're trying to do here?
So for the community, hi everybody. For the community, I am in the process of registering people. And so I'm hoping to get through the registration process here in the next day to be able to put up the first reports and the first charts. And I'll send out a notification to people that have joined in to let them know that that's happening.
Yeah, okay. Yes, that's kind of fun, because I know that people, they like to know about themselves, and then when they get all of these charts, for one price, and that's a really good deal. And so that can, they can get a really good understanding about who they are and what they are.
Yes, and I'm looking forward to the projections moving forward too. So like what you mentioned just a second ago about Donald Trump being triggered as the sun moves, into next month. And, we're going to have solar returns before too long.
Yeah.
And so we'll be able to see what's coming up for each one of us, which will be really fun.
Yeah, and it's amazing how many different charts there are in astrology. Like there's just, some people think, well, it's just one chart and that's it. But it's not. There's all kinds of things that go along with it. And then the planets move 1 degree per year, like they do on this chart here, and your own personal chart. So every year you have a new chart, and that's why people get the solar return charts, is because so that they can tell what it will be happening in the year to come. And a lot of people like that chart. And then if you're thinking about having a partner or wanting to know if a relationship's going to work, there's a compatibility chart in there, and several others. So It should be very interesting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So I guess this will be it for this time. And so goodbye for now until next time.